Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we have finally reached the final day of our international conference. And then for the closing ceremony today, we have invited our guest, Her Excellency Dr. Merve Safa Kavakci from Turkish ambassador from Turkish embassy. He's the ambassador of Turkey to Malaysia. So Alhamdulillah, before we start our closing ceremony, I would like to call upon Dr. Hafiz Abdullah for dua recitation, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم إنا نسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والسلامة من كل إثم والغنيمة من كل بر والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار اللهم اجعل المؤتمر Icctme هذا مليء بالخير والبركة واجعله زيادة في كل خير وجنبها من الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وارزقنا علما ينفعنا اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجزام ومن سيء الأسقام ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل اللهم فينا ولا معنا ولا من يتبعنا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Alhamdulillah. So before we further our closing ceremony, let me explain in brief about the backgrounds of our guest today, Her Excellency Dr. Merve Safa Kavakci. Prior to serving as Turkish Republic's ambassador to Kuala Lumpur, Dr. Kavakci was the founder director of the Post-Colonial Studies Research Center at Üsküdar University from 2014 till 2017. She was a lecturer of international relations at George Washington University and Howard University in Washington, D.C. from 2004 till 2014. She was elected to the Turkish Parliament, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey in 1999 as the first Muslim woman with hijab. However, she was prevented from serving her term. Kavakci's political party was closed down by the Constitution Court and her Turkish citizenship was revoked, banning her from politics for a period of 5 years. She took her case to European Court of Human Rights and won in 2007. A widely recognized international public figure, Kavakci addressed the British Parliament House of Lords, United Nations Commissions on Human Rights, US Congress Helsinki Commission and Inter-Parliamentary Union. She has lectured at myriad of world's renowned universities. Kavakci is among Georgetown University is the world's most influential 500 Muslim in 2009. If I'm not mistaken, two of our Malaysian fellow was named in the uh, in the world most influential 500 Muslim. They were, if I'm not mistaken, Tok Guru Nik Aziz and Tuan Guru Haji Abdul Hadi Hawa. She was awarded with appreciation for social justice certificate by New York University 2006. The Beckett Fund for Religious Liberties Body of Belief exhibition exhibited the headscarf Kavakci wore in the Parliament at the US Congress as a symbol of religious freedom in 2005. She was recognized among Women of Excellence by National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and George Washington University. She was awarded the Public Service Award in tribute and in recognition of efforts for the advancements of human rights and Muslim women's empowerment by International Association for Women and Children in 2000. She was awarded Service to Humanity Award by Haus der Kulturellen Aktivitat und Toleranz, year 1999. Kavakci holds a PhD in Political Science from Howard University, year 2007, and MPA from Harvard University in 2003, and a Bachelor of Science in Software Engineering from University of Texas at Dallas, United States. Kavakci attended the medical schools of Ankara University, however was not permitted to continue due to the headscarf ban. She served as a columnist for Turkish Daily Yeni Akit from 2004 till 2017. She is the author of Headscarf Politics in Turkey, a Post-Colonial Reading, published by Macmillan in 2010, and 5 other books, some of which are translated to Arabic and Persian. She is the editor author of International Relations in the Global Village, Changing Interdependencies, published by Della Academic Publishing, 2013. Her most recent book is The Unnamed Coup at the Scarfless Democracy Bozortuzuz, Democracies del Atikon Mamis Darb, published by Timas, 2014. A book of her political life, The Day Turkey Stood Still, was authored by American writer Richard Perez, published by Ithaca Press, 2013. Dr. Kavakci is mother to Fatima and Mariam. On 12 February 2018, Dr. Kavakci presented her credential as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Turkey to His Majesty of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong of Malaysia. I think that with the background, we know better about our guest today. So I think without any further delay, I would like to call upon Dr. Merve Safa Kavakci to give his talk in this closing speech. Dr. Merve, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Nasir, for this long introduction. First of all, I'd like to say, distinguished guests, dear friends, academics, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. It gives me great pleasure to speak at this international forum, particularly at the closing session. For the last days, myself and my team have been on and off following, and we're looking forward to, inshallah, benefiting from the kind of knowledge that is produced through your expertise as we are trying to tackle the global impacts of COVID-19. Thank you, organizers of the 4th ICCTME conference, and my special thanks goes to Professor Kamaruzzaman, who is a great follower of Turkish international relations and politics as well, who has been very instrumental in inviting me. If you allow me, in the next few minutes, I'd like to shed light on how Turkish Republic has tackled this unknown nemesis of ours that has come into our lives very recently. It was around this time last year that we started canceling our upcoming engagements and sort of hunkered down, and not at a small scale, but larger one, namely globally. We, as Turkish Republic, had our first case of COVID-19 on March 11. And we immediately established our full-fledged functioning pandemic hospitals in different parts of the world, the country, 6 of them. We knew that when I was aware of that, I knew that this kind of a challenge posed to humanity, like that of the COVID-19, will be somewhat here to stay. It may be a different kind of virus that we might have to deal with in the future, but pandemics might be the reality of our life as a human race. And therefore, we established those full-fledged hospitals scattered across the country. I think Turkey has done a good job in quick response, for one thing, and a good crisis management skills put together through testing, tracing, and isolation and quarantine. So we were pretty much prepared when we were hit with our first case on March 11th. And we immediately also established, once the world has started being infected with the COVID, early in January, and that is 2 months prior to the first case surfacing in Turkish Republic, we established Coronavirus Scientific Board, to be exact, on January 10, 2020. By March 22nd, so roughly almost 10 days after the first case emerged in Turkey, we had a lockdown. And for my Malaysian colleagues here, let me explain that the lockdown that we had as the people residing in Malaysia is different than the one that we had in Turkey. So if you recall, once we had the strict MCO applied in Malaysia, we hunkered down altogether, and it was a full-fledged lockdown. In the Turkish case, just to be a sort of in comparison and contrasting, we had a lockdown for people over the age of 65, and then we had also introduced a lockdown in April for the people under the age of 20 who can be super carriers, as you can imagine. And in the meantime, of course, daily support of food and basic needs were always provided to the elderly and the needy by the state. Masks were distributed free of charge. So rather than necessarily imposing a full-fledged lockdown from the get-go, if you will, until the end, depending on where we are in Turkey, the authorities have introduced gradual lockdowns. Schools were suspended once the first case as I had mentioned, emerged. And it only took about 10 days for the schools to go back to distance learning via television. All kids, citizens or non-citizens, were able to pick up the pieces and move on through the screen. And flexible working hours were introduced, of course, for public servants, and selective lockdown, as I can emphasize, to avoid economic repercussions. So on the one hand, if we take a step back and think about the sort of the challenge of fight against the virus, on one hand, the health concerns. On the other hand, you have the economic concerns. And in order to limit the impact of the economic repercussions, we decided to apply a selective lockdown in a gradual manner. Higher education also has adopted the distance learning system very easily. And when we look at the statistics now, for the past year, 80% of accessibility was succeeded through the distance learning. A new digital education system was immediately created and put into effect. Now, economically, of course, we were also concerned, but I must say that we managed to score a positive growth during the pandemic. Proudly, 1.8% growth in GDP, some 718, let me say, billion dollars was the to be exact. Interestingly, by August, industrial production index among the OECD countries put Turkey ranking first, the upper highest, with an increase of 10.4% annual production rate. And actually, as far as the world is concerned, we ranked by August second after Singapore. That's something important we take pride in. And as a result, actually, of those somewhat adroit attempts of managing economic repercussions of the virus, yesterday OECD raised Turkey's growth rate expectations by twofold, and announced that the growth rate for the upcoming near future for Turkey will be 4.9%. Of course, when we look internally, as far as economic packages are concerned, we introduced some sort of paycheck protection program, as you can think of it in terms of a bailout package, sort of the government giving a helping hand to its citizens. We introduced moratorium on evictions for 2020, and also quite a bit of sort of incentives for bankruptcy. We tried to strike a balance between safety precautions and sustainable growth, whatever that might be, in terms of a time where the whole world was inflicted and cringed with this virus. So we took the decision that we should keep our borders open for tourism for a good part of the summer. In the meantime, of course, strict measures of hygiene and everything else goes without saying. On this note, Istanbul Airport the very recently built airport of ours received the world's first airport health accreditation documentation. So this is the first in the world. Prior to the pandemic, I must say, for the past 18 years, we have focused very deeply locally in our internal politics, reforming our healthcare system. And prior to the pandemic, we ranked the world's third highest ranking health tourism destination. So we tried to, during the pandemic period, try to stay as such and create a hub where we can have people who can travel to seek healthcare despite the pandemic. And this falls very much in line with our humanitarian foreign policy approach that is promoted by our leadership, namely President Erdogan. During the pandemic, I think Turkey had done a great job in turning this crucible, if you will, this challenge to humanity, this difficulty that discriminates no race, no geography, no color, and no culture, to be exact. And we reached out to 125 countries. So humanitarian aid during the pandemic, as part and parcel of our foreign policy paradigm, worked out in extending a helping hand wherever that might be. So 125 countries actually received financial and medical aid from Turkish Republic. To be exact, in Europe 40, in Africa 31, in Asia 26, in Americas and Oceania 14 countries received medical supplies. We have sent PPEs, we have sent over 200 ventilators, all Turkish made. A donation of $5 million went specifically to where our heart as Turkish Republic very much is, to Palestine. 15 tons of PPEs and sanitary supplies were sent specifically to Gaza and Ramallah. I'm just sort of giving those numbers just to shed a light, and maybe it can be a cue to take for other countries as well. We have a vaccination center in Saida, Lebanon. So we do not just take care of our own people, but we try to help out to anybody and everybody who might be in need of. We brought back 100,000 of our citizens from 141 countries during the pandemic, and I can proudly announce that this is the largest eviction process in the history. So nobody was left behind, far from homeland with homesickness, if you will. 228 ailing citizens of other countries, in total number 37 countries, were brought to Turkey as well for medical health care. We transported around 5,500 citizens of other countries, to be specific, from some 67 countries to their own homelands. We have also assisted, we have foreigners in our country, 6,000 of them living in Turkey from some 90 countries. We assisted them to go back to their own homelands as well. And of course, there are people who needed ambulance transfers, and we brought home 233 of our own ailing citizens with our ambulance planes, and who needed proper health care. The courtesy of the Turkish Republic. And now if I can sort of roll and speak just a few sentences on where we are. First batch of vaccinations started off. The campaign was kicked off on January 14, 2021. And as to date, right now, we have 10% of our 83 million population already vaccinated and counting. This is a process, an ongoing process. We have learned from our own experience of the last year. We have also learned from the experiences of other countries, and we look forward to more collaboration with all countries, particularly also with the country of my residence, Malaysia, as well. Thank you very much for this kind invite and giving me the opportunity to address you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Kavakci, for sharing us how Turkey managed to do a good job in order to overcome COVID-19.
Thank you.
Since there is no Q&A session, question and answer session, before we go for closing, so I think that I would like to mention the experience of Turkey, how the country managed to overcome or to combat COVID-19 by testing, tracing, isolating or quarantining, and finally by vaccine. So that is a standard procedure also applied in Malaysia and other countries. So finally, we also appreciate the efforts, the attempts, or the contributions of Turkey in combating COVID-19, not only for its citizens, local citizens, but as well as foreigners or foreign citizens. In fact, nobody was left behind. So this is a very good example from Turkey that all other countries should learn or should share. So I think that with that we get closer to the end. So I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to be a moderator. So my task is quite easy this evening because there is no Q&A, so I don't have to control participant. And then the second one, my thanking goes to all VIPs, scholars who contributed, shared their knowledge, taught in the seminar, in the conference, and finally the committee members, as well as the participant who involved in this conference. So with that, we stop now, and the international conference on current trends in the Middle East will be back, inshallah, by next year. So with that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
كانت فكرة مؤسسة أحباء غزة ماليزيا افتتاح مركز بحثي يوجه خطابه لدول جنوب شرق آسيا لتعريفهم بحقيقة ما يجري في فلسطين وحشد الرأي العام في تلك الدول خلف هذه القضية. فتم بفضل الله في 16 من يوليو 2019 تأسيس مركز المبادرة الاستراتيجية فلسطين ماليزيا، وهو يعمل في 5 مسارات: البحث العلمي والإعلام والترجمة والتدريب وطباعة الكتب.
عمل مركز المبادرة الاستراتيجية على إنجاز العديد من الأبحاث العلمية، حيث تم إنجاز أكثر من 30 بحث علمي يختص بالقضية الفلسطينية، عدا عن الندوات وورشات العمل السياسية التي تختص بالقضية الفلسطينية أيضا. أما عن قسم الإعلام فقد تم إنجاز الأخبار اليومية بشكل يومي والتقارير الأسبوعية والجرافيك والإنفو جرافيك.
وفي هذا الإطار يتعاون المركز مع عديد المؤسسات والمراكز البحثية في فلسطين وماليزيا، ويسعى لزيادة هذا التعاون وهذه الشراكة لمساعدة الشعب الفلسطيني في نيل حقوقه العادلة.
كما قام مركز المبادرة الاستراتيجية بتنفيذ العديد من الدورات التدريبية لتحسين قدرات كادر العمل بالاشتراك مع مؤسسات شريكة. كما قام المركز بتجهيز العديد من الكتب العلمية التي تختص بالقضية الفلسطينية، وهي في طور طباعتها إن شاء الله.